30 red targeting symbols ignited across my tactical display before our jump engines had cooled. A second later, the bridge speakers began counting weapons locks from a planet still more than 6 astronomical units away. Ren leaned over the sensor station and ran the scan again. The result did not improve. Commander, every major vessel in our formation is being tracked. I stared at the blue-white star ahead and the small inhabited world circling it. Earth. By then I already knew one human could embarrass a champion in front of half the Galactic Council. I had come to discover whether she was unusual. 3 rotations earlier, I had believed the answer would be obvious. The Council tournament had never impressed me. Representatives from more than 100 worlds filled the observation galleries while selected fighters demonstrated their species, military traditions below. Most contests were political theater disguised as combat. I had commanded Krellian forces for 20 cycles. I knew what dangerous soldiers looked like. Then the announcer called Captain Mira Hayes. Her opponent entered first. Champion Drakath of the Vrexian Collective stood 8 feet tall and carried 4 heavily muscled arms beneath a scarred natural exoskeleton. 14 opponents had faced him in previous tournament bouts. 14 had lost. When Hayes stepped through the opposite gate, Ren actually laughed. She was barely 5.5 feet tall. Her dark hair was tied back. Her combat suit carried little visible armor, and the only weapon on her body was a curved metal sword in a worn scabbard. "No powered edge?" Ren asked. "Apparently not." Drakath struck 2 fists against his chest plate. The noise rolled across the arena. Hayes merely flexed her fingers. The arbiter lowered between them. The match would end at surrender, incapacitation, or first blood. Lethal action was permitted if necessary. The signal sounded. Drakath charged. Hayes stayed where she was. 10 feet. 7. 4. Drakath raised all 4 arms. Then Hayes moved. His attack crashed into empty space, hard enough to chip the arena floor. She had shifted behind him. I blinked and checked the tracking replay. No enhancement signature. No teleportation. Footwork. Drakath spun toward her. Hayes tilted her head. "You commit hard when you decide to move." He answered with another charge. This time he tried to trap her with overlapping strikes. Hayes slipped inside the first, ducked beneath the second, then placed one palm against his third wrist. Her hips turned. Drakath's own momentum drove one armored forearm into another. The impact produced a sharp crack. The crowd fell quiet. Drakath became furious. Hayes became calmer. For the next several minutes, he attacked while she reduced every movement to the smallest possible answer. She did not compete with his strength. She redirected it. When she could move 3 inches, she did not move 6. His breathing changed first. Then his balance. Then his timing. Ren gripped the edge of the observation rail. This should favor Drakath. "It does," I said. Yet Drakath was losing. Hayes finally stepped away and reached behind her shoulder. The sword came free, with a thin metallic ring. Drakath stared at it and exposed his teeth. "You intend to test that scrap against my armor?" Hayes placed both hands on the grip. "I intend to test the openings your armor leaves." Drakath rushed her. She advanced too. The first cut landed beneath one upper joint. The second crossed the flexible seam of another arm. The third opened a narrow line along his lower side before I could follow the blade. Drakath stumbled past her. Green fluid ran from 3 wounds. Hayes stopped with the sword held low. The arbiter's sensors flashed. First blood verified, Captain Mira Hayes wins. For several seconds, the arena produced no sound except Drokath's breathing. Medical crews hurried onto the floor. Hayes cleaned her sword and walked away. Directly beneath my observation pod, she looked up. Her expression carried neither pride nor anger. She had simply noticed me. My communication implant activated before she reached the tunnel. Ambassador Krell appeared. High Command wants your fleet sent to the human system. You are basing an intelligence mission on one duel. No, we are basing it on what the duel may indicate. I looked down as attendants helped Drokath from the arena. Then we will determine how much it indicates. That decision brought me to Earth. On my bridge, the sensor board continued filling with contacts. 214 orbital defense platforms. 37 patrol craft. Mobile installations. A construction facility beyond the moon, large enough to assemble cruiser-class vessels. Wren enlarged the image. These structures were absent from the older Council survey. Then the survey is obsolete. A communications channel opened. An older human officer appeared on the main screen. Gray hair, decorated uniform, relaxed posture. Commander Vexthal, this is Admiral Marcus Park of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet has entered monitored space. Explain your purpose. Council Reconnaissance Authority, Protocol 7-4. Park looked briefly off-screen. You remain outside the restricted distance, so your presence is lawful. A pause. So are our targeting systems. Wren confirmed the locks again. I faced Park. You greet visitors aggressively. I greet military fleets cautiously. His tone remained almost pleasant. Then he surprised me. You are here because of Captain Hayes. No diplomatic dance. No polite fiction. I said nothing. Park continued. You watched her fight. Now you want to know whether the Council underestimated humanity. How many of your soldiers possess comparable training? Roughly 4 million active personnel hold combat qualifications at a level or higher. Reserve forces add approximately 20 million more if mobilization becomes necessary. Wren stopped moving. The Krellian Empire's elite ground formations numbered a fraction of that. You expect me to accept those figures without verification? No, I expect you to use the reconnaissance mission you traveled here to conduct. I switched the display to Earth's orbital infrastructure. Your military development exceeds the information you gave the Council. We gave accurate information when it was collected. You allowed others to underestimate you. Park's expression tightened slightly. We allowed ourselves time to understand our neighbors. Then new sensor alarms sounded. Ships began appearing from behind the moon and several inner system positions. Dozens. They had been hidden from our scanners. Wren whispered a curse. Park waited until the contacts finished forming defensive lines. That is part of our home fleet. I stood. You call this peaceful. I call it prepared. The formations were unmistakable. Mutual support. Cross-fire coverage. Protected retreat lanes. They were not moving toward us. They did not need to. Park leaned toward his camera. You may complete your scans from your current position. You will not approach Earth without authorization. And if I choose otherwise? His eyes remained steady. Then both of us will have a much worse day than either of us needs. That was the moment my assessment changed. Not because he threatened me, because he did not sound eager to prove anything. We remained at our legal distance. For 2 rotations, my crews gathered data. Earth's vessels were smaller than ours, but highly maneuverable. Their communications encryption resisted our specialists. Defensive systems overlapped so thoroughly that destroying one platform exposed an attacker to several more. Before we departed, Captain Hayes contacted me. She appeared on my private display from a training facility. I heard you came to inspect the neighborhood. You have caused considerable interest. I suspected I might. Was that the purpose of the tournament? Hayes shook her head. The purpose was to win the match without doing unnecessary damage. You made Drakath appear helpless. He wasn't helpless. He made tactical errors, and I used them. I studied her. Why does a civilization that speaks so often of peace prepare so heavily for war? Hayes sat forward. Commander, how many council species have existed without ever being conquered? I knew the statistic. 43. Out of 217. Yes. She nodded once. Humanity read the same history. The noise of someone striking a training pad echoed behind her. We have no need to own Krellian territory. We have no wish to rule anyone. But we decided before entering wider galactic politics that Earth would never depend on another species choosing to be merciful. Her expression hardened. We prepare so that saying no remains an option. Months later, I stood in the High Command chamber while my report was reviewed. 3 admirals sat above me. One placed a data slate on the table. Our independent sources support your findings. Another opened Earth's classification file. Effective immediately, humanity will be treated as a peer military power. Diplomatic Protocol Alpha applies to all strategic contact. Protocol Alpha. The classification, reserved for civilizations capable of system-wide warfare. I looked from one admiral to the next. Earth possessed one homeworld. That fact no longer mattered. 6 months after my first encounter with Hayes, I returned to the tournament. This time, every opponent had studied her. They knew how she moved. They knew how she controlled distance. They knew about the sword. 7 fighters entered against her over the course of the event. 7 lost. The final match lasted longer than any before it. Hayes took a heavy strike across one shoulder and nearly lost her footing. Her opponent pressed forward, forcing her toward the boundary. The arena roared. Then Hayes changed rhythm. 1 step outside. A turn. Her opponent overextended. She trapped his weapon arm, drove him to one knee, and stopped her blade against the vulnerable seam beneath his helmet. Everything went still. The arbiter descended. Yield acknowledged. Championship awarded to Captain Mira Hayes of Earth. Hayes released the fighter immediately and offered him her hand. He looked at it, then took it. The applause that followed was different from the year before. No mockery. No disbelief. Respect mixed with caution. Hayes accepted the crystal trophy and started toward the tunnel. When she reached the point beneath my pod, she glanced upward. I raised 2 fingers. She returned the gesture. Nothing more was required. Around me, representatives were already sending reports home. Governments would expand fleets. Militaries would develop counters. Diplomats would rewrite assumptions. The galaxy would adjust to humanity. But it would never again confuse lack of conquest with lack of strength. As the arena emptied, workers began resetting the floor for the next competition. One technician found a small metal fragment near the boundary where Hayes had trapped her final opponent. He picked it up, examined the fresh cut across its surface, and dropped it into a maintenance tray. The tray rolled away beneath the stands. Above it, Earth's flag still hung motionless beside the banners of civilizations that had once considered humanity too young to matter.